these centers for AI. So there are some proposed areas, I think out in Howell or Brighton, somewhere out to the west, where these, they want to build these banks of essentially computer labs where they can energize all of the AI that's happening right now in actually the country. So these proposed sites are they're being objected to by various environmental groups. However, we also see all across the state that much farmland, also woods, or woodlands as well, have been decimated for solar panels. Yes. But there's been no complaint on that. So my question is, what's happening? Are you aware of what's happening with our farmland? And what is your feeling on these AI centers? What is your feeling on the solar panels? I know it's kind of a question. It's not an easy answer, but it is something to see when you drive from Detroit to Chicago. The amount of farmland that is now solar panels is actually shocking. Yeah. So I just wanted your opinion on that. So I think you start first this time.
When I become governor, I'm going to eliminate the green mandates. That is to change all of the fleet in Michigan. We'll change that so it's not even in place. We'll eliminate all the green mandates that they have put in place from Whitmer's administration. Friends, it's lunacy. If you talk about the AI center, I believe it's in Saline, if it's somewhere in that area, if I read properly or correctly, or my memory recalls.
There's two,
you can't run those on solar panels.
Right.
It's just absolutely ludicrous. You can't wait for windmills to spin that either. So I would be big on doing some research on nuclear power and making that more effective. I worked at nuclear Fermi 2 back in the day, and the reality is our solar farms are killing our farmland. In the 1970s, there was a three-name acronym, and I can't remember what it is at the exact moment. But the point is, farmland is protected in Michigan. It's supposed to be protected. It's supposed to be protected against solar farms. But if you notice, they call them solar farms because if it's farmland, they can't just say we're putting up solar panels. They call them solar farms. And so that's a sly way of getting these in there. But the problem is, if say you want to take that solar farm out and you want to put in real dirt again, the American Potato Association has said we're not doing that. We're not going in because there's so many chemicals. If say there's some hailstorm and it breaks all the glass, it contaminates all that soil, and they have come out and said we don't want potatoes or anything growing on that dirt anymore.
So what we are years.
How many?
30 years.
30 years. So we're in this really tough place where we do have these environmentalists who are coming out screaming and telling us to save the planet. Believe me, I believe we should nurture, we should care for the planet that God has given to us. I'm not saying that the opposite at all, but what I am saying is they've gone the wrong way, and I would suggest that we follow the money. If you look at all these new programs, just see who's invested in those. And I'll bet you, like Obama, he said, hey, we got all these shovel-ready programs. We're going to have movie theaters down in Allen Park. I would bet if somehow we could chase that money back, we would find it coming into the pockets of our politicians. So those are just some of the ways I would address that.
Boy, with the high cost of energy here in Michigan, what's driving that? And it's tough for whether you're a job creator or whether you're a family, when you're having to put on your credit card your electric bill. There's a challenge here for our families. And you see this with what the governor, Whitmer, and Democrats have passed in Lansing, is that it's going to be a straight line up. We're going to be energy constrained. And if you're energy constrained, you're not going to be able for families to make it here with another $2,400 of added cost on your electricity bill. Or if you're a job provider, people want to go to where energy is abundant and cheap. Thank God for President Trump and wanting to be energy dominant in the 21st century. And if Michigan's going to be energy dominant, energy abundant, we got to do a few things. One is this Green New scam the Governor Whitmer and the Democrats passed a few years ago with a 100% partisan vote needs to be repealed.
Yes.
As your governor, I'm going to repeal that. We're going to make sure that we're not going to see 300,000 acres of our farm and forest land industrialized in this state. That's what a ban on fossil fuels means. That's what this legislation actually means. And as a farm boy, as a family who still has a farm, it's important to defend our rural areas and to have a rural agenda, to make sure our rural families can actually make it here in Michigan. Line 5, that needs to be rebuilt. The Great Lakes Tunnel. It's been 7 years since it's been authorized, and you've had a governor and attorney general that's been suing to stop having that built. $1 billion investment in our energy and environmental infrastructure, they're saying no to. If we're going to make it in Michigan, we got to make sure everybody can make it here in Michigan.
That's right.
And then I have perfect record when it comes to corporate welfare, business subsidies, handouts. Mackinac Center has a list. And whether my history has been to vote consistently against these big government handouts, because we need to get back, if our family's going to make it in Michigan, lower the cost of taxes, lower the cost of energy, lower the cost of insurance. If our job providers do away with these regulations and rules. It's not about bribing companies to come here. That's how you compete and win in the 21st century.
Okay.
There's a lot with this question, but let me tell you just a brief story, and I've told this to several, but in lame duck of last year, there were 2 bills that were introduced. One was going to put a substantial burden on the plumbing industry. The other was going to put a substantial burden on electricians. The one involving plumbers made it to the governor's desk and she signed it. The one involving electricians died. Do you know why? Because the environmentalists showed up and said, if you sign this into law, we will not have the workforce available to put up all these thousands of acres of solar panels across these farmers' fields. Let that sink in for just a moment. You have legislators in Lansing right now that care more about taking over your farmland, putting up solar farms, than that care about building affordable housing for your loved ones. That is wrong. And the answer to your question, both of them, again, it's right here in our plan. Number 1, it calls for banning the use of any state land being used for solar panels, wind farms, whatever you want to call them. That state land needs to be used for state land, hunting purposes, you name it, not for putting up solar panels.
That's right.
In terms of the, you had asked about the conservation and the hunting, we've got a complete section dedicated to that, but guess what? Do you know how you get the DNR under control? You do exactly what I talked about earlier. Take away any ability for the Natural Resource Commission or the DNR to make any rules. And that's what our plan calls for. All rulemaking authority has to go to the legislature to make those laws. The people closest and most accountable to the voters. In terms of the commission, they should only be able to give recommendations, and it also calls for making certain that anybody that serves in that commission can prove that they have a stake, that they are a hunter or an angler. We shouldn't be putting environmentalists on this commission to recommend ridiculous rules to our legislature. The last thing our hunting plan calls for is this. In the history of our state, there's only been one legislative leader that's passed constitutional carry through a chamber. That was me in 2017. If we want to show our hunting industry that we are serious about preserving it and making certain that we support it, Michigan and the hunters or anybody in the state should never have to pay our government a fee to exercise their Article 1, Section 6 rights in this state.
I think the state gives the DNR the land, and then the DNR, or the state gives the DNR the money, and then the DNR uses the money to buy the land, and then they tear down the trees, and then they put up the solar panels. And then they sell the land to I think that's what it is. Okay.